Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right in. Today we're going to discuss something absolutely crucial to your success, happiness, and overall well-being. We're going to talk about why you need to focus on yourself and understand that people come and go. Take a moment to reflect how much of your time, energy, and emotions do you spend worrying about what others think. How often do you put your own dreams on hold because someone else doesn't approve or understand? Too often, I'd wager. One of the greatest challenges we face in life is learning to put ourselves first, not in a selfish or inconsiderate way, but by prioritizing our own growth, goals, and happiness. If you don't take care of yourself first, you won't have anything left to give to others. Let me share a story. Years ago, I met a young man named Tom. He was brilliant, personable, and full of potential, but he had a problem. He was always trying to please everyone around him. His parents wanted him to be a doctor, his girlfriend wanted him to stay in their small town, and his friends expected him to always be available. Tom was miserable, stretched thin, trying to make everyone else happy, forgetting about his own happiness. Don't get me wrong, relationships are important. They add richness to our lives and support our growth. But people come and go. Friends move away, relationships change, colleagues switch jobs. The only constant in your life is you. I asked Tom if you could do anything without worrying about what anyone else thinks, what would it be he wanted to start his own tech company, but was afraid of disappointing his parents, losing his girlfriend, and being judged by his friends. I told him what I'm telling you, at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your choices. There's nothing worse than regretting not pursuing your dreams because you were too busy trying to live someone else's. Some of you might think, isn't that selfish? Shouldn't we consider others? It's a fair question, but by focusing on yourself and becoming the best version of yourself, you become more valuable to others. You're happier, more fulfilled, and that positive energy radiates to everyone around you. Think about the oxygen masks on an airplane. You must put your own on first before helping others, because if you pass out, you can't help anyone. So how do we start focusing on ourselves? It begins with self-awareness. Understand who you are, what you want, and what your values are. This isn't always easy. We're so used to defining ourselves by our relationships, jobs, and possessions. Strip all that away, and who are you? Ask yourself tough questions. What do you really want out of life? What are your passions? What makes you feel alive? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Don't rush this process. Take the time to dig deep and be honest with yourself. Once you understand who you are and what you want, set clear, specific, and measurable goals. Want to start a business? Great. By when? What kind of business? How much capital do you need? Want to improve your health? What exactly does that mean to you? Write these goals down and put them somewhere you can see them every day as a constant reminder of what you're working towards. Now, here's the tough part. When you start focusing on yourself and pursuing your own goals, you'll face resistance, often from those closest to you. When you change, it makes others uncomfortable because it forces them to look at their own lives. Some people will drift away from your life, and that's okay. It's natural and part of the process. Remember Tom? When he decided to pursue his dream of starting a tech company, he faced a lot of pushback. His parents were disappointed, his girlfriend gave him an ultimatum, and some friends accused him of changing. But Tom persevered. He focused on his goals and surrounded himself with people who supported his vision. His business took off, and he found fulfillment living his purpose. Interestingly, some people who initially resisted his change came back into his life. His parents saw his happiness and success. He met someone new who loved him for who he was, and he formed new friendships with people who shared his passions and values. When you focus on yourself and become the best version of yourself, you naturally attract the right people into your life. You can't make decisions based on keeping people in your life. You can't compromise your dreams, values, and integrity just to make others comfortable. If you do, you'll end up resenting them and yourself. Have the courage to be true to yourself, pursue your passions, live your purpose, and trust that the right people will support you along the way. Some of you might fear ending up alone, but it's better to be alone for the right reasons than in bad company for the wrong ones. When you're truly focused on yourself and your goals, you're never really alone. You have yourself, and there's no better company than a self you respect and are proud of. Maintaining focus on yourself in a world that constantly demands your attention, energy, and time takes discipline, commitment, and daily practice. Start your day with yourself before engaging with anyone else. Meditate, journal, exercise, or read something inspiring. Throughout the day, check in with yourself. Are your actions aligned with your goals? Are you making choices that serve your highest good? End your day with reflection. Celebrate your wins, learn from setbacks, and be patient with yourself. Growth takes time and change doesn't happen overnight. Focusing on yourself isn't about being perfect, it's about being authentic. It's about being true to who you are and who you want to become. As you start focusing on yourself, you'll need to set clear boundaries with others. This isn't about building walls, but defining what's acceptable and what's not in your life. Protect your time, energy, and dreams. Practice saying no. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your goals or values, you're saying no to something that does. Some people won't like it, but that's part of the journey. Real self-care includes taking care of your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Eat nutritious foods, exercise, and get enough sleep. Manage stress, process emotions, and seek help when needed. Here's the big challenge of life. You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. That's the challenge. And of course, the other side of the coin reads, unless you change how you are, you'll always have what you got. I have found in my experience that income does not far exceed personal development. Now, sometimes income takes a lucky jump, but sure enough, unless you grow out where it is, it'll usually come back where you are. Life has strange ways. If somebody hands you $1 million, best you become a millionaire quickly, so you get to keep the money. Otherwise, sure enough, it'll disappear. Somebody once said, if you took all the money in the world, divided it up equally among everybody, it would soon all be back in the same pockets. Incredible. Success is something you attract, not something you pursue. Success is looking for a good place to stay. So instead of going after it, you work on yourself. Personal development. See, the major question to ask on the job is not what are you getting? The major question to ask on the job is what are you becoming? See, the big question is not what am I getting paid here? The big question is what am I becoming here? Because true happiness is not contained in what you get. Happiness is contained in what you become. So that's our major subject for tonight, personal development. Of all the assignments Mr. Schoaf gave me at age 25, this was probably the most difficult. In fact, I'm still working on this one. I think it's an unending challenge to see what you can become. The next subject is called Basic Laws. And it's good to study the basics. And I call these basics primarily because they come from the Bible. Now, I'm not a theologian or a minister, and that'll be apparent. But Mr. Schoaf taught me that the Bible was a good textbook for ideas and stories and success equations, how to live the better life. I found out that was true. He also taught me that the Bible is as practical as it is spiritual, and I found out that's true. If you look at your bank account and your income and you're not happy, there are several places in the Bible to check to see what the heck's wrong so you can make the changes. And we're going to cover some of those tonight, called basics. Okay. The next subject is my favorite, setting goals. Mr. Schoaf taught me how to set goals. What a favor that was. One morning at breakfast, shortly after I met him, he said, Jim, let me see your current list of goals and let's go over them and talk about them. He said, maybe that's the best way I can help you get a better direction started. And I said, I don't have a list. He said, well, is it out in the car or home somewhere? I said, no, sir. I don't have a list anywhere. He said, well, young man, that's where we got to start. He said, I can tell you right now, if you don't have a list of your goals with you, he said, I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s. Which he did. And that got my attention. I said, you mean my bank balance would change if I had a list of goals? He said, drastically. That day I became a willing student how to set goals. And sure enough, learning how to set goals changed my life. And I often wondered why no one had ever taught me how to set goals up until age 25. I went to high school, but if they offered it, I missed it. I went to college for a year, never heard it. I worked for Sears. Really. And to my knowledge, Sears never taught it. Right? How to set goals. Any home over $200,000 has got a
Library. Why do you suppose that is? Wouldn't that make you curious? How come every home over $200,000 has got a library? Does that tell you something? Does that educate you at all? You say, well, I can't afford a $200,000 home. It doesn't matter what size home. Take your present apartment, clean out a closet, call it your library, and start acting intelligent. And start this process like I did. Start developing a library. Here's what your library needs to show: that you're a serious student of health and life, spirituality, culture, uniqueness, sophistication, economics, prosperity, productivity, sales, management, skills, values of all kinds. Let your library show you're a serious student. Don't be casual in learning. Don't be lazy in learning. Okay. Information is the key. Okay. Learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of health. Learning is the beginning of prosperity. Learning is the beginning of democracy, the beginning of freedom. All values, all virtues start with the learning process. So don't be lazy in learning. Don't be lazy in gathering the library that'll teach you and instruct you. And I got that book, Think and Grow Rich. Some of the ideas in that book inspired me no end, helped me to change my life. Now, it's got some weird stuff in it. You know, it's got some weird stuff. Napoleon was weird, so you gotta separate out a little of this weird stuff. But you can do that. You can separate out the weird stuff, okay? Unless you're weird, just do the weird stuff. Anyway, remember, don't be a follower, be a student. That's the key to all books. Don't be a follower, be a student. Okay. Another book he recommended. Help Me Become Financially Independent. We're going to cover that before we finish this afternoon. The book was entitled The Richest Man in Babylon. The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason, C-L-A-S-O-N. This little book, The Richest Man in Babylon, I use it as a textbook, teaching teenagers how to be rich by 40, living in America, 35 if you're extra bright, much sooner if you find a unique opportunity. I got rich by the time I was 31, didn't wait till 35. If you find a unique opportunity. So we'll get into that after we come back from our next break. Richest Man in Babylon. Get your library started. Here are some key sections to put in your library called mental food. In fact, we call it food for thought. It's so important to nourish the mind, not just the body, but nourish the mind. Key phrase. Now it needs to be well balanced. You can't live on mental candy. Somebody says, well, I just read this positive stuff. That's too second grade. You've got to get out of second grade. You can't just be inspired. You've got to be taught. You can't just be inspired. You've got to be educated. Key. Here's a good book. It's called How to Read a Book. Good title. How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. In this book, How to Read a Book, Mortimer, you know, is the chief editor of the new Encyclopedia Britannica. A good set of books, right, to have in your library. The Encyclopedia Britannica, chief editor, Mortimer Adler. He's in his 80s. He's still active, still writing books. I've got several of his books. The 6 Great Ideas, a lot of books, Mortimer Adler. But he wrote this book, How to Read a Book. Now, in this book, How to Read a Book, not only does he give you some good suggestions on how to get the most out of a book. It's one thing to read it, it's another thing to get the best out of it. He'll give you some techniques on how to get the best out of a book. It's very good. But here's what's also in his book, How to Read a Book, a list of what he calls the best writings ever written.